Welcome in, everyone. RFK Refugees Podcast. Ted here, John here. Ted sitting from his normal location, or semi-normal location. I've moved around a lot. John currently has a blinding light that is like...
I thought it would give like a halo effect. I thought it would make me look angelic. I don't know that. I've got to block it with my head, and then it's fine.
It certainly does, my friend. It looks like a little halo of light that's just like shining into you. But you are not at your house. You are on the road. Where are you? Where are you right now?
I'm in Indianapolis.
Okay, I thought we could like guess the state capital. Like we could like guess which state capital.
I could do that. No, it's yeah, I'm here. I'll be gone tomorrow. That's my thing. I'm here quickly and gone quickly, but it's nice. I like it.
Nice. Well,
so you're at home.
I'm at home.
How was your weekend?
Soccer filled. It was tournaments in Williamsburg I had to drive out to, and then very odd weather. It was like semi-warm, and then it got really cold, and then Sunday was really cold doing indoor. And the center referee I had for was like 30 degrees, 34 degrees, and the dude was just like out there, like no Under Armour, no like shirt, just going at it, man. So props to him. He did a good job too. He was also being assessed for higher levels, so
that's why he had to show his supreme toughness.
He did. So it was a good weekend. And then also got the Lego like F1 cars that they're releasing of like all the cars.
Saw those at Target.
It's built my. I can actually. No, this is not good audio for the camera. For the audio,
this is
for the podcast,
for the video.
This is for the video, folks. I built this, so that was fun.
What is that? What's your team?
That team is Williams, man. I am a gluttony. I'm a DC United fan. I'm a Williams fan. I'm a gluttony for punishment. Let me just tell you that much.
Those are pretty good.
So I like being surprised and happy. Just like we were all surprised when Jacob Murrell got on his bicycle and powered home. Goal of the year. I don't know if it'll actually be nominated because I don't know if it'll win goal of the week because there's a Miami up for goal of the week, and that's just it is what it is at this point with how MLS goal of the week nominating voting. But a fantastic goal from him. We'll certainly talk about that. We'll talk about all DC United coming up, a 2-2 draw. But I guess let's jump right into it, man. DC United. I don't think we had really any other news. Fidel Barajas. I think we talked about it a little bit on the last show. Maybe from a news perspective, what are your quick thoughts from you before we get into the game?
I think it's hilarious that he's number 99.
Is he?
He is.
He is? Oh man, that's awesome.
According to FootMob, he is. Maybe that's a lie. So if anyone can correct me, but that's what I saw.
That's wild, man. That's like Jaime Moreno, man. That's like Jaime Moreno's like legendary number in like the back half of his career.
That would be the most ballsy I am only here for 3 months move of all time. Like, who are your gods? I am now your god. I am whatever number he is, I am that now. It's
wild. But yeah, DC United 2-2 draw. Drew saying LOL first. I'm like, welcome in, my friend. DC United 2-2 draw against the Chicago Fire. How are we feeling, John? What do we
This is a familiar feeling to me.
Okay.
It's a familiar feeling where there's a discrepancy between what we think going in and then how we feel coming out of it. I think there's no way that you didn't look at these two games and be like, well, you got to at least win one of them. You got it out of Toronto and Chicago. You got to at least win one, and then we didn't. But I swear this has happened in like the last 2 years at the beginning of seasons where you miraculously save a point either on the road or in a dramatic way, and then you have to feel a little bit better than you probably should feel. The real struggle here is that, those two teams are the team. I mean, granted, everything could change. There's always new bad teams. I think that's the great thing about MLS.
Yeah.
There's always like a surprise Red Bulls missing the playoffs. There's always a surprise Sporting Kansas City being really, really bad after a decade of dominance. But those are two teams that didn't do a whole lot to get better. Chicago hired a coach, signed a really great left winger who I'm sure will come up in our conversation. But those are two teams that if you were serious at the beginning of the year, like playoffs or not even just a reach, but that's what we should be expecting. You wanted 3 points there. So
yeah,
it's tough.
Yeah, you wanted 3 points out of those games. Toronto, I guess I'm more annoyed at than this game. That game's at home. This game's on the road. Toronto's a team that is right now very much a mess organizationally. Chicago is, I don't want to say like it's all there, it's all together, but I think they're in a much better structure building forward. And they have a coach who's, I mean, regardless of what you think of Greg Berhalter as a national team coach, he's a competent coach. He's going to put out a good roster. He's going to put players in the right positions.
He wears sneakers on the sideline.
He wears sneakers. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing out there. Whether it works out, who knows? But I think he knows what he's doing out there. I guess, obviously we had the elation of the Murrell goal. I kind of said, like, I think with this game, I was like, after the Murrell goal, I was like, I got to watch this again. I got to go and I got to watch this again. I came away with some differing opinions than when I guess I previously started this match. I think I've changed around maybe some of my negative opinions on certain players, and also maybe there was more of a spotlight on players that I really didn't much pay attention to the first watch around. Let's start with the good. Let's start with the first goal. Gabriel Pirani. We talked about him. Is he number 10? He needs to play better. He needs to look better. I would say this game, from a starting position, maybe you can come up from the fact that he started the game, and this was probably one of his best performances as a starter that we've seen this year. He was dynamic. I think there were some instructions or some come to Jesus moments maybe with him. I think the improvement from him came from either Lassane or somebody in the coaching staff, or however they were organized to him, that were like, look, you are not Ronaldinho out there. You're not a dribbler. Even though he had one minor good dribble, I think it's sort of towards the end of the match. Your goal, you need to maximize what you're good at. And one thing he's good at is making runs. He is actually very excellent at recognizing the space, getting himself in a good position. It's why I think I see him more as kind of like a false 9 than I do see him as like a number 10, because he is very excellent at kind of finding the space, putting himself in the right positions. It's sort of what happens afterwards. And I thought in this game, maybe what the game plan was, look, you make your run and know what pass you're going to make and make that pass. Right decision, wrong decision, just make that pass. Whether it's an easy pass, whether you see an opportunity, just make that pass. And I think that's why he looked more effective in this game, because there wasn't the spotlight when he was getting dispossessed. He was looking for that easy pass quicker. He wasn't trying to dribble himself, play hero ball as much as maybe that he's doing against Toronto.
Do you want to hear a stat to disprove that?
Okay, fair enough.
Do you know how many times he was dispossessed?
Okay, sure. Go ahead, throw it at me. I'm sure it's
5, and the next closest was 1. So he is making decisions better, but every time the fact that he gets the ball more, he was much sharp. He got rid of the ball much faster in the first 40 minutes. In the first half, particularly when he was doing really, really well in the DC United ascendancy period, which was 12 minutes, where they were pressing the ball, turning the ball over. I think I said this on the halftime Instagram thing. Tell me, what is the number grid system outside of the 18 between the midline and the other team's 18? Whatever that grid is, DC United is like a dominator in that space.
Zone 14, I believe it's called.
It's absurd. Particularly, they can't withstand it the whole game. It's better than Losada's press, because it is a more full team press. The Losada press was more about forwards. The forwards would overload from side to side on the center backs and hopefully turn over a ball. So Pirani I would say this was Pirani's best start for sure. I just think that I have as the resident hater, and not just from a balance perspective, I think that he is I think he's in some situations he'll be more punished than against these teams, and we'll see that soon. We've got Kansas City coming up. I don't think that's going to be a big test either, based on the way they've started the season. But soon it will be. It is a promising change, though. His best contribution in the previous game was being a dummy for Boris Eno. So this was much better than that. This was substantially better.
And I mean, his run was incredibly intelligent.
It was.
He attacks the space. He gets right up on Benteke and causes the defender, I forget the defender tracking him, to kind of flinch. He wasn't sure what he was doing. It's like, the other player's marking Benteke. I got to keep my position and keep my space. And that allows, and it's an excellent ball from David Schnegg, who we'll talk about in a minute, to find that space. And then it's just a really, finding Benteke, easy finish for Benteke, 1-0 goal very early on in this game. Again, this team, for in the Rooney days, in the Losada days, this team was always a team that had to fight back in games. At the very least, what we've seen from this Lassane team, they're striking first in just about every single game, and that's a carryover from last year.
Yep.
They were very, very good at starting the game. Finishing's another problem, but they were very good at starting the game.
I think that's really the biggest conversation point in this game.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the XG spread, I know when I heard the final XG number, I couldn't really believe it. I don't know. For whatever reason in my mind, I was like, I just don't remember all these chances. And then I went back and watched. Benteke hit the crossbar. Benteke hit the center mass of the goal on Brady. He missed the penalty. Dami Baji heads the ball directly at Brady when any other part of the net would have been fine on a pretty wide open opportunity. The XG was so high because they had really high quality opportunities that they didn't convert, and that Benteke went through. Obviously, he has 2 goals in 2 games, so we have to shut up a little bit. But like we talked in the areas in the little bit of runs where he goes into like 3 games, 4 games silent. It's not that he doesn't get opportunities. He just goes a little cold and gets a little wasteful. But I think that finishing is really the point here. Finishing is the difference in 3 points, and of course, I mean the absurd goal saves their blushes a little bit and gets the draw. But really, it was just this game should have been much more in hand. Chicago had a couple opportunities as well. Kuipers hit a crossbar in the first half. So just finishing is something really to look at.
Let's talk about that moment, because I think Schnegg, I thought, started really well. I kind of like went back and watched this game, and that was kind of I watched that whole moment. And when Kuipers hit the crossbar, and I was kind of like, Schnegg, what are you doing? Like, so if you haven't watched the play, it's sort of I forget how the ball gets sort of to the corner. Rawls kind of goes over to try to press. Schnegg looks like he's tracking the runner, and instead kind of just tries to like join, sort of like, like you're a basketball player trying to like full court press a guy and sort of pin him in the center of the field. I don't think he's blameless in that situation, but for that first situation, it was kind of a flashpoint where I pointed and I said, that like, what are you doing? Track your runner. Like, don't worry about what he's doing. You need to track your runner, because that ultimately leaves, I forget the player on the right side who then plays the cross into Kuipers, but that leaves like a massive gulf space that then the Chicago attacker is able to find, sort of ping, squirt the ball out there. And then he's able to put the cross into Kuipers, who's sort of unmarked. I looked back at that play, and I'm not going to say Schnegg's blameless, but I do think I look at Cervania, and I think he thinks I push in, and maybe that's something that's been discussed, and then Cervania is going to track the runner. I came away from the second watch, and I was kind of like, Cervania is like solid. He's serviceable. I'm kind of ready for Matty Peltola to kind of step in there.
He'll be there next game. I'm sure after the sub, he'll be there.
It felt like he got a little bit kind of lost in this game. Later in the game, Chicago was sort of been able to sort of bypass the middle of the field a lot. That sort of led to them sort of regaining a lot in the first and the second half to kind of generate some more chances. My hope is that you have, Peltola is in there. He's a much more sophisticated player. Obviously, he's worth, he was signed for $750,000, so you better be. And Cervania signed for league minimum. So there's a difference there. I am fine with Cervania. I think he does some good things, but it's very clear that he's not some guy who's going to go taking Matty Peltola's job.
Do you think he takes Jackson Hopkins' spot once he gets healthy?
Possibly.
That's the duel. I think that's that's where you should be thinking about him location wise. Like, the interesting things about Schnegg. So 2 things about Schnegg. One, it's funny that he has how his stats net out. Won the most duels of 12, was most fouled, had the most tackles in the match. Like, statistically, he did well, but then he also was 71% passing. I think that the challenge here is he's being asked to do a lot in this system. I don't think when they signed him, obviously maybe they did, maybe that was their in their mind all along. But as you signed this player, I don't think anyone thought that this guy. FootMob doesn't have ground covered, but he's got to be in the top 2 of the team, right? He has to be, with the amount of work he has to put on both sides.
And I think the hope is you get a player like Peltola in there, more defensive instincts. It gives Enow more permission to kind of push forward a little bit, like I think he wants to. And also, Peltola came to this league. He he covered a lot of ground in Finland. He was highlighted very much as sort of being a guy that he can sort of cover ground. And I think that is the idea and I think that's where DC got kind of caught, was like Cervania wasn't really able to recognize, because he's more of an 8. I think he's played more of as an 8. He's not really sort of been having to sort of play that defensive midfield. So he's in the right position of the field, but he's being asked to have more defensive responsibilities. I think the hope is from Troy's perspective is that Peltola gets in there. He's got more of a 6 mentality. He's a natural center defender, also can sort of slide back and sort of, break up plays before they're bad, help with the transition defense. So I'm kind of holding a lot of opinion on kind of how this team looks in transition, I think, until he's in the match. We'll talk a little bit about that. I'm come away like, again, tough to say with the diet that they've had so far, whether it's good or bad, but I thought this game was a little bit better in sort of transition. It was better than it was with Toronto.
Game 1 was horrible.
Yeah.
Game 2, to your point, slightly better. I'm still very I really am interested to see what happens when you play a team with really clinical finishers and speed on the wings. We'll find out. It's not this league has plenty of them. Matty got 30 minutes that game. I really didn't notice him that much.
Second watch, I noticed him. I think there were some moments. There were some moments where he was checking back a lot. He was providing a little bit more better on the defensive cover. He hit like a really sort of half volley that really sort of kind of threatened. So he's kind of looking for that pass a little bit more than Cervania was. I say his performance in I think you're going to notice his performance in a 90-minute span. Then you're going to notice him in a in sort of a 30-minute cameo, especially when you're chasing the game, especially when you're down 1-0. Any other, I guess, from that first half, we'll get in maybe a little bit more into the second half. Anything else in the second half? Jared Stroud. We
should probably talk about the goal.
Oh, talk about which goal?
Chicago's goal.
Chicago's first goal. Okay, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, man. Kim Jung-hong. I think he deserves a little slap on the wrist for that moment. Let's talk about, because there was a fiery response from people in the chat. I think we actually did get a question.
Join our Discord, folks.
Yeah, I think we did get a little bit of a question on that. Let's say, shoot, I thought we had one. I swear we had a question on this.
Well, you look, basically,
yes.
The situation there was he got pushed out of position by Bamba on the Chicago Fire, and didn't really adjust to the physicality. Didn't force the issue with the player, and got himself sort of lost at sea on a ball crossed in front of him, and ended up inside the net.
Yeah. So yeah, there was some talk about the game. Is that a foul? I think that's kind of what they were looking at. Is he impeding? Is Acosta impeding Kim Jung-hong? I would say yes. I would say he's impeding him. I would say there is an argument for a foul in other leagues in the world that is called, this is MLS. And I think that is a welcome to MLS moment for Kim Jung-hong. If I'm Cody, if I'm the goalkeeper coach, I'm having a conversation. I'm saying, look, buddy, you gotta fight. You gotta really don't let an opposing player kind of sort of guide you or nudge you, out of position. Go get in front of him, go fight against him. If he tries to prevent you, and he tries to actually grab
your
you,
arms up, and you clatter into him, and you make them make a call the other way if you have to.
You get him to call that foul. You make it so obvious. I think that's why the referee was like, I'm not going to call that, because you're just letting him kind of push you into the goal. What is so plainly wrong about what's happening right now? You're not giving me enough evidence to say that you are being fouled or impeded. Yep. You're almost looking like that's what you wanted him to do.
People on the internet are saying that the K League has a much more that would have for sure been called without even thought. But to your point, welcome to MLS for sure. This is consider this your notice. No more of that.
MLS refs. I mean, the league is a very physical league. There are going to be things that aren't called in other leagues that are called, and really, every league has differences. There's differences all around in every single league about what's called, what isn't called. There's a reason I've always say that the how you play the game. The reason they call them laws because they're up to interpretation. I think more than just any other league in the world. There's not like hard set and fast rules. There's nothing that talks about specific things with fouls. It's always like, in the opinion of the referee, there's an unfair advantage gain, or there's something like that. So it's up to interpretation. So I think that's a moment where you have to learn. You have to learn like that. That's not going to get called. I think we saw Kim recover last game. I expect him to recover this game. Really, again, when you have a team that generates 0.5 XG, there's not really going to be too many opportunities for you to sort of make up for your mistakes. So I don't think there was any other moment. Really, the second goal, not his fault. I mean, that was just Kuiper's wide open. It's incredible if he gets out and makes that save. So, yeah, unfortunate moment for him. And I think that's where I'm kind of holding on to it. The past couple games, it hasn't been we've been played off the field or we've been overrun. It's just been little individual moments of a team that, either players are adjusting to the league or there are players that are, filling in for spots in positions that, were hopefully be filled by other players. And there are players that are trying to learn each other. I look at the Schnegg situation for the Kuipers ball at the crossbar as a situation where hopefully with, more communication, more understanding amongst the players, those types of situations don't happen. Sarvania recognizes, or in this case, Peltola recognizes, hey, he's pressing. I need to track Kuiper. I need to track that winger and prevent him from getting the ball, or at least make it more difficult for him to get that cross off. And we'll get to the second goal in a bit, but any other notes from the first half? I did bring up Stroud. I wanted to bring back to him.
Yeah.
What are we thinking?
To me, Stroud's only effectiveness was where he was crossing the ball. All the rest of his game was really poor.
Yeah.
And first game of the season, I was, to your point, I watched the first half a second time, and I was like, boy, he was not playing well. He was not connecting very well. He was turning the ball over. I was not impressed.
Yeah, it was a rough performance. I do wonder, we saw this team last year, the connection that he and Herrera had, kind of on that right side, and how they kind of moved. And I will say, I think there was, maybe with Stroud out there was more of a push. I noticed Herrera kind of pushing forward a little bit. It wasn't as much as Schnegg. Schnegg still is the player playing high. Early on in the game, they were certainly doing the, 3-man back line, kind of, pressing, kind of like, and a lot of time putting the foot on the ball and asking Chicago to press. I thought they were getting Chicago to bite on that a lot. And I think DC did actually a very decent job generating that into chances. But yeah, back to Stroud. I mean, it was definitely not a great performance from him. I have to wonder, do you think he starts next week, or do you think Murrell,
Yeah, I think he does. I think Troy loves him, and I think he wants to get him right. I think he wants to see what this team looks like with Stroud and Peglo on the field at the same time.
Yeah, I think we'll see that too, and I think we'll see Peglo either. I don't know if he'll
starting. He'll come. He'll do the Matty 30 minutes at the end of the game, depending on game state.
Yeah, I would say with the attacking player, sometimes it's more likely if you're up, maybe you bring him on to try to, like, in that last 30 minutes, just to try to, like, close the game out. So yeah, sorry, I'm trying to, like, lose my train of thought here and trying to gain it back. I thought, Stroud wasn't good. I think Murrell deserves more looks. I think you're going to see him come off the bench right now, and I think that's a competition to watch now, which is, I think, a very positive thing. I think Stroud's a good player. He's a very solid player, but if you can get to a position where Murrell's able to maybe step up, there are other players where it suddenly becomes an argument. That's a very good sign for DC, because that's depth they didn't have last year.
There's no other arguments. There's no, and even still, there's no arguments. No one's like, that guy should have definitely started if everyone's healthy.
Yeah. So it's definitely a case where you look at it and you're like, maybe, again, a couple games, I think we'll see him start next week, just for, let's give him another rollout. I think we see Troy do that sometimes. I think he did it with Pirani. He could have very easily, and Leao got hurt, so maybe there was another option, but he could have said, nope, that really didn't work. We're going to switch it out. I think he is shown to be a coach that's like, okay, that wasn't great. Let's see if you can do it again. Let's give you another
I
shot.
mean, that's what the season is, right? Like, I think you kind of find yourself, and you've got to really. There are a couple players. Murrell's in this position, yeah, where it's a put up or show up year. It was kind of that for Ted last year. Like they do want to give them enough opportunities to really do some player evaluation. So Jackson Hopkins, whenever he gets healthy, that will be him. He will be getting lots of minutes at the beginning of the year, I think.
Yeah, or middle of the year.
Right? Yeah, whenever he comes back.
Whenever he gets back. We did get a question from RGN. Was Pirani's play improved enough to warrant continued starts? I'd say yes. I'd say after that performance, I'm like, let's keep it going.
Particularly with Leal injured, and I think for sure he's going to get. We said it at the beginning of the year. He's going to get lots of opportunities.
Yeah,
they've cleared the path for him at 10, at least until the summer window. He's it. So he's got to figure it out, and he did be starting to figure it out a little bit.
I think the goal is that performance. That performance needs to become the baseline. That performance needs to become, that's. We don't want the bare, the floor of what he can do. If he gets better than that, then I think that's good. And so I think that's a performance to build on. I'll see. I'll be very curious to see how he does against KC. I think that'll be kind of the can he put together another. If he puts together a similar performance, I think you keep him out there because generating 0.3 expected assists is certainly better than 0.00 expected assists.
Kansas City with the offer in the goal scoring category for the season so far. So that will be interesting if they break their duck in a major way against us. That'll really tell you sort of defensively where we're at.
There are a lot of teams. It's early. It's 2 games in, very early, but Nashville hasn't scored. New England hasn't scored. I think that's a team to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they start continuing to struggle, how much longer do you think good old Caleb Porter is going to be in charge? And so there are teams out there that are certainly in a lot worse shape and a lot more questions than I think we have right now. We talked about it, and you talked a little bit in the pre-show, sort of the building out of the back.
Mm-hmm.
That's been something that we've seen. I thought the first few minutes it worked great. I think we are seeing signs of improvement, and we got some questions regarding Troy Lesane. Definitely some signs of improvement about how this team's able to kind of build through the middle. This isn't a team. They'll hit the long ball. Like the first goal comes from very direct play. But there's sort of a difference between direct play and hoofing it to Benteke. You can play direct, but play deliberately and also generate, chances through that direct play. I thought there's some signs that, they can get this right and it can work. I think it sort of waned in effectiveness, I would say, towards the middle of the game. So it's about maintaining that. But overall, that's been a wrinkle that's, I think started to develop out of this year. And it's good to see that's the idea and that it's not just hope it to Benteke, hope it happens type of play.
Yeah, passing triangles to that degree involving those basically every player in the midfield. Every player was part of build up. I think that's new. And honestly, with the way this team is built, I'd rather see them fail trying that than doing any sort of reversion. Particularly if they want to make a next step, it should. I think you need to develop that sort of danger, or at least having teams be concerned that you're actually going to play them off the field or attempt to play them off the field. It won't always work, and then sometimes you'll think, "Boy, I wish Ben Olsen was here and we could just put 10 behind the ball and shut it down and make sure we don't concede." But I'm encouraged by that. I think with some better finishing and the players continuing to figure out, what run you're going to make. It's still early, to your point. Sort of a quick digression. At what point, say everyone's healthy, say we've got our first choice 11 in the next week, which we might at some point in the game. That's a possibility. How long into the season before the idea that all right, they're still learning each other, they're still learning a system? Do you think 8 games in, like a third of the way through the season, the way that this is set up for them was set up for a fast start? It was Toronto, Chicago, Sporting KC, Montreal, and then Orlando, Columbus, tough. San Jose, Cincinnati,
San
Red
Jose's
Bulls,
tough.
Yeah, San Jose now is tough. Surprise. And then it gets hard. Cincy, Red Bulls, Philly. So I feel like by the San Jose game, the Columbus game is, that's like where you're like, all right, well, what can we get out of this? That gives you 1, 2, 3, 4 more games, and then we're talking about like maybe the first game against the Red Bulls. That's, I think at that point you're like, all right, we're in the middle of April now. If we're all still healthy, we're going to want to see better finishing. We're going to want to see continued danger at different points of the field, and then a much tighter defense. They're on pace to concede. What did someone say? 60 goals. I mean, obviously things are going to change, but that's what they said last year. The problem was they conceded too many goals. They had the Golden Boot winner and they still stunk. So that's got to be that. Hopefully that's first. I wouldn't mind seeing that like be the thing that they solve first. But do you think that's a fair thing? So one,
I think
two,
that's
three,
fair.
4, 5, 6 more games.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think these next 2 games at home, teams at Kansas City are rebuilding. I think they're pretty much there. They've jettisoned their DP. They're trying to figure themselves out. They haven't had the best start. Montreal is Montreal. They have a worse ownership and worse shape arguably than DC as far as like what they're doing. It's just a lot of like, papering together lineups and seeing what works. Orlando is a team I think that has started out solid, but maybe a little bit not as I think that's a winnable game, and DC for whatever reason does really well on the road against Orlando. And then you got home against Columbus. I think Columbus is a well-coached team. They're going to be certainly ready for DC. The question is going to be, they're still dealing with a little bit of deficiency.
And they put up 4 in a hilarious fashion on Chicago the week prior to this one.
Yeah. That was mostly Chicago beating themselves, I will say, and then Columbus necessarily doing that. So, there was some comedic event, and there was close to some comedic moments. I think for Chicago, there was almost an own goal. I think they could have put up 2-2, could have been up 2-0 early in this game.
Is Russell Rowe Columbus's new 9, having sold Cucho so close to the end of the season? He's got 2 goals in 2 games, or is it Chiberko? No, it's not Chiberko. Who is their, like, I'm just looking at that roster because that's a team that team is always, I mean, Cucho aside, taking Cucho out of and then Zelarayan before that. Not Zelarayan. Who was their midfielder but that they sold?
That was
Zelarayan.
Zelarayan, yeah.
Like they'd have these talisman, but also the coaching was so good that it would just like make the unit almost unplayable. Who is their new 9? Is it Rossi? Yeah. That's who it is.
Diego Rossi, yeah.
Okay. I was curious about how that anyway, it's very early. They're shaking out. You're still not getting an idea who these teams are yet.
Yeah. It's a lot of very very early days, and things can change very, very quickly. Teams can rise, teams can fall.
Don't play MLS fantasy, is I guess what I'm saying.
I had a good week this week. I played some fantasy. I had a good week this week. Any other let's talk Kojima. I think there were some Kojima's a guy who I feel like looks good. Like I still liked how he plays, but this game was a little bit for me kind of like, I don't know. It's like it was kind of the same. It was a lot of one note. There really wasn't a lot of sort of development. His performance felt very much the same as Toronto. I still like it. I think he had some moments where I think he had one play where he worked the ball really nicely on the wing, centered it over to Benteke, and Benteke kind of either mishits it or takes a deflection. He claims it was a deflection, so that was good. And there were some other moments, he kind of won fouls. He's certainly a guy I think that plays very direct and fits this team very, very well. I just don't know. I haven't seen this moment that says I may be kind of looking over at Peglo and I'm like, I'm interested to see him. I'm kind of interested to see him get out there.
I mean, without a doubt. I think Ben Olsen would have loved this player.
Oh yeah.
I think there's a room for a player like this, and I think that everyone tells us that his ceiling is much higher offensively. That's what we've been told.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we're letting people figure it out, I do love that the effort is there the entire time. You talked about him winning the fouls. I love to see, that's like one of my, it's like the boomer soccer thing of me. I love when a player will throw his body into the way, shield the ball, and then get an opportunity for his team like that. Like that's his first thought. He's not thinking like, I'm going to dribble this out, or he's like, I'm gonna be smart here. I'm gonna swoop and squat to steal the Camaro. I'm gonna get right in front of this guy and hit the brakes. I love to see it. Just it's a refreshing sort of gutsy, grittiness. But to your point, I think you'd ask him too. It was similar to his first week's performance. He didn't have it all there.
Yeah. It wasn't a performance where you're just like, I didn't come away saying like, man, Peglo's really going to have to impress to earn a spot. It was kind of like, if Peglo shows up like a player who's worth what we paid him and roster, then Kojima might be a bench option. I think it's
Which is fine, considering where he was last year and what we paid for him.
Yeah.
400, whatever. But he was not. That's okay. That's good, because other than that, like, truly, if you don't have players like that on your bench, you're kind of in trouble. Like, I think those are exactly the guys you want to be able to be that 12th man, the first guy off.
Yeah.
In the midfield.
Let's talk second goal, and let's talk response. Another corner kick, similar motion. Peltola gets kind of the focal point. I think this was another case where I actually, from the first watch, was like, I think I get what he was trying to do here. I think he is not going to beat Hugo Kuipers. If he tries to jump up and win the ball, he's going to look silly. I think this is another case of just communication on the back line. He looks at Rawls, and I think the assumption is that Rawls is going to pick up Kuipers. Rawls doesn't pick up Kuipers, or he's going to step forward. If Rawls takes 2 steps forward, Kuipers is offside, and this is a non-issue. I think that is what Peltola was trying to do here. I think he was letting Kuipers go and trying to draw him offside, because, there's no way he's winning that battle. Kuipers will absolutely just jump over him and head the ball into the back of the net anyway. It's unfortunate. It's a lack of early season communication issues. Both those goals are just like, I think, just things that you hope you can sort of iron out in training. They're individual things. They're not things that are like, these past 2 games. I will say that the biggest positive is, I think, it was like figuring out where we are. Results aren't there, but I look at this game and I'm like, I can see there's something there. We'll get into some thoughts on Troy's manager and kind of how people are feeling about him. I'm on the side of, I think Troy is a good coach. The fact that he was able to, put together this roster, and even though it's not perfect, there is a set idea. The players are bought in for the most part. Everybody looks like they want to be out there, and even despite those goals, I think it's been positive to see sort of that development. I don't know. What were your thoughts on the first? Am I completely off my rocker, or did you see the same thing? I guess on the second thing. Yeah, he's trying to play him off. He's going to lose that battle. The response, and this is where I get into the positive. It is nice to have some bodies and some players that, even though maybe you're not concerned about Rita Zohir, as John's camera flips in and out, and there you go, he's back. DC, of course, goes down 2-1. They start throwing players sorted. Rita Zohir makes an appearance. I was curious, like, are we going to see Fidel Barajas? Is Barajas going to make an appearance? Nope.
I think he was the equivalent of the second goalkeeper on the bench, and that considering he's practiced one time.
I gotta say, man, I think your opinion. We'll see how the injury list goes, but they seem to be able to acquire players.
All I said, by the way, was that it would happen, and it happened in the first game. So that bet is cashed. It's a cashed bet. We're gonna move on.
No, you had to have more than just. You had to have, like. Did you just say it would happen in one game?
I said it would happen. Yeah, because it doesn't happen usually for other teams, and it happened right in the first. Anyway,
fair enough. Aside, Baji comes in, Zohir comes in, and DC. This was where I get the very positive. DC just piled the pressure on, and they were all over them. Baji especially has a clear-cut chance, and just a fantastic save from Chris Brady. Chris Brady in that second half, like, stood on his head. And I just remember watching this game, and I'm like, man, it's going to take something special or a penalty kick to tie this game. Like, and
you were right.
And I was right. And I was like, it just felt like, when Baji has that point blank header, and people are saying, well, you put it anywhere else in the goal. I'm like, I want you to go jump up and, like, try to direct a header anywhere else onto the field. Like
I will.
you are
That's
you
I'm a professional soccer player. I will do that.
you jump up and you literally head it towards goal and you do it with pace. That is a goal against, like, I would say 60 to 70% of the goalkeepers.
What is up with Chicago Fire being like a goalkeeper factory again all
I
of a
know,
sudden?
it's crazy, man. It's crazy. But that was sort of the flashpoint moment, and then we get the PK. Then we get
Previously, three for three, by the way, before this.
Yeah, and here's the question from our chance to ask the referee question. I was a little confused by the commentators' discussion about Sam Rogers' handball near the end of the game. They said there's been a change to the handball rules. Do you know what the changes they were referring to, or what is the handball rule in the penalty area? They were kind of referring. There's been a lot of updates to that rule, Arjan. There's been specifically just on like what is, it's all about away from the body, gaining advantage. All those things have kind of been there. This was a pretty clear cut PK. The defender sort of jumps up, hand in the air, and sort of swats the ball away from Benteke. That is about as clear cut as you're going to get as far as a PK is. I think the commentators, there's been the handball rule. There's always, like, every year there's like a new interpretation to try to get it just right. And it is an ever changing rule as far as like what counts as handling, what doesn't count as handling. So I don't know what specifically they were referring to, but it's a PK, and you think, oh, you would think Benteke automatic. Like, you would think Benteke Golden Boot winner automatic. I remember being like very nervous. I was just like, man, like Chris Brady has like stood on his head. Like, I just feel like he's gonna like save this. Like, this just feels like one of those moments when he's gonna save it. And Benteke said, "You don't need to save it. I'll just kick it right over the goal." And set up my boy Murrell for an for the magical. Miss PK. He's missed PKs before. I don't know any worry. I guess from mistake. We talked about Benteke going cold. Any worry about that, or just
nope? The fact that he scored helps, even if it was early in the game. I think he's fine. He's just a guy that needs volume changes sometimes.
Yeah. And
this was one of those. I feel like that's like the no-win scenario. Like, down 2-1, game you shouldn't be losing. Get gifted an opportunity where it just feels like it's a foregone conclusion. I feel like that's the worst penalty. Like, that's the worst situation to be taking a penalty. It's like, it's just, from a mind games perspective. It's just like, well, I don't even have to think about this. I don't need. I'll just it'll go in. It's going to go in. That's what's going to happen. I'm not concerned about that. If it was would I be as calm if we had lost 2-1? I don't know. We'll never know. I guess we'll never know how I feel, but maybe not. I don't know.
Let's get to the magical. Let's get to the moment. The just audacious attempt by Jacob Murrell. DC wins a corner kick. I thought it was good. Like, I thought this is where, like, maybe, like, I think Peltola deserves some credit, because I think he does the absolute right thing. He could have, like, looked, maybe tried to play a pass. He puts the ball sort of directly out wide. And then it's a cross in. I forget who was actually on the cross. Herrera was on the cross. Cross in, and then Jacob Murrell, like, just instinctively, like, does the bicycle kick, loops it over the top. Probably, like, one of the, like, where does this rank for me? Takeaway moment, take away everything else. We'll get to that in a minute. Where does that goal rank for you as far as just like we've seen Benteke score on a bike, but I feel like this one was just like in traffic, the way it kind of loops over. I don't know how do you quantify it as far as like skill.
I like I like bikes that are hit a little harder. I don't like the looping bicycle. I like the pile driver bicycle when I think about like the aesthetics. Like, the Wayne Rooney bike is the best one that I've ever seen for Man United. So I don't know. It's a great goal. I love the timing of it. I love who scored it.
Yeah,
I love the celebration. It's all good stuff, but I don't
you
know
love
that
that celebration. I know you loved that celebration,
Sure.
Mr. Baseball. Mr. Baseball over here.
I thought it was golf. I thought it was a golf swing.
I thought it was baseball. He didn't
he's really into golf.
Maybe it was golf. But it was like he did it twice. Like, he did it in the crowd, and he's like, no. I
really wants everyone to see that. I need some space.
He needs some space. It's a fantastic goal. I'm a huge fan. looping nature of it, the audacity to even try that attempt.
That part.
Yeah, you need players. Sometimes you need players who are just willing to try stuff. That is a situation of a player who's just like, I'm going to try this. Like this is the last kick of the game. The ball's coming, and it's just instinctual where he's just like, I'm going to try this, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, and it works out.
If it didn't work, I wasn't the one who missed the penalty 3 minutes ago, so we'll have someone else to blame. Troy said you can thank Georgetown for that. It wasn't him. Troy had nothing to do with that.
He's hit one. He hit one in Georgetown too, apparently as well. So they showed video of that on I think MLS 360.
It was, by the way, very cool for me to be getting ESPN app notifications about DC United doing something good.
Seeing the goal.
Yeah.
London says, with Murrell's bicycle kick, what are your favorite goals scored by DCU? Game winning, tying, or not? I'll start with every DC goal in 2004 Eastern Conference Final just had everything incredible about it. Both you had Escaneri and Moreno, and oh my goodness gracious, Christian Gomez scoring those goals. Go watch that game. Esky hits just a great rocket shot to the top corner. I was walking into my seat as that goal was scored. Very memorable goal for me. There's Moreno dummying Matt Reese into a cross and then just shooting it into an open net. And then there's Christian Gomez with kind of a sort of diving back header to score the third goal in that game. Every part of that goal was fantastic. And the moment also made it more impactful. And then obviously we're probably going to have to talk about the Rooney Acosta goal. That situation, I think, from an individual effort, just Rooney tracking back, winning the ball cleanly, defense with an open goal, then drifting it forward, and then somehow finding Acosta as the smallest player in the field. That goal, I think, stands higher. Where do you sit? Any other goals, I guess, that you remember more?
They're both regular season goals because that's how I've been watching. There's a Taylor Kemp goal, left-footed outside of the boot goal from outside the 18.
Yeah,
there's
remember that one.
And then there's a De Rosario free kick from 7,000 yards. I think that was against RSL. I'm not sure.
That RSL hat trick game was
I was there for that one. I was like, oh, this is special. I'll remember this one. And then the Ben Olsen New York Red Bulls hat trick was the first game I was at that I bought tickets to.
I will say the Rooney Acosta goal sits special because that was the fans were back in the stadium. There were the protests early on. I think that was when everything had kind of been settled and everybody kind of returned. Mm-hmm. So that moment hits kind of special for kind of being that to me felt like, okay, Audi Field is now the home of DC.
I got to add one more is the De Leon goal in the playoff game, in the only playoff game in Audi Field history.
That was also good.
That was I won't ever forget the sound of that one. That was bananas.
Yeah. Loud Adam over says also the Rooney last minute to Lucho play was one, and that was also the beginning of the playoff when they sort of put the playoff run. Any other moments? We got some questions. We're going to get to them. I think tried to see if I could weave them in. I did not do as good a job as I usually do on that.
Plow through them. It's fine.
Let's go. Ryo77. Given we spent a not insignificant sum on June, and most MLS teams don't put money in the goalkeeper position, how and when should we evaluate this move? He needs to be a top keeper X by the end of the season, etc. I don't
top keeper.
Yeah, that's a little.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, I just think you want to see. There have been two goals right now that you can sort of attribute, but they're mental things that you have to learn from as a goalkeeper. Mm-hmm. The dive in the Toronto game and then getting sort of pushed.
We haven't had this young of a goalkeeper since Bill Hamid.
Yeah.
So, and Bill Hamid used to make really stupid mistakes when he was a young player. I don't. Our current listeners, maybe there's not all of them were there for that, but he would get red cards. He would be outside of his box trying to clear balls. The ball would bump over his foot, and they'd walk goals in. I saw crazy stuff with Bill Hamid's early career. So, the fact that we paid a transfer fee doesn't really matter. I think that
he's U22.
Huh?
His cap hit is really low.
It doesn't really matter. So I think what I want to see by him by not even the full end of the year. I want to see an end of the mental mistakes at least, or diminishment of them. Not happening every week. Something where we're like, ooh.
Yeah.
Shot stopping is there though a little bit. I think we've already seen some of the physical gifts of him so far.
Yeah. I want to see 1 or 2 games where you come out and you're like, he got us a point. He got us 3 points. That's, I think, what I want to see. I want to call out Mark Rickling because he does bring up a good goal. Lewis Neal, 2013 Open Cup goal.
Great one.
My favorite trophy of all time. Not the one that's the most memorable, just from how bad that year was, just to hold up a trophy. All right, we got a long one from
Also, the
Jermaine.
Lewis Neal goal against Columbus to get us in the
I was at that
playoffs.
game too. That was
Same.
another special goal. That was the Boscovich pass. That was like the one moment we got from Branko Boscovich that was special.
Him and then the Open Cup where he scored a hat trick and blew his knee out or whatever it was.
JJ Manzer 888 says, I know it's super early, but looking back at last season, how the season started, what are your thoughts on Troy as a manager? It may be still too early to tell this season, but I think he continued what we saw last year in so far quickly developing a team identity, style, and play. There's still growing pains to address, set piece defending, but I think that he's set the team up well each game, managed impactful substitutions. Again, maybe too early to judge, but I thought it'd be worth reflecting on Troy since all the new players.
Could not have been a Blues guy question. That was a lot of words. Was that
this was a
Discord?
This was a Discord question. I'm reading them all. I'm reading them all, man. I'm going through.
I was like, that's like 4 posts attached. I think that's a really fair read on him. To me, with a coach like Troy and a team like this, it would be one thing if ownership spent $15 million on transfers and brought in all can't miss 3 DPs, as far as what you're expecting immediately, like what the results you're expecting. They told him to build this out and that you're going to be playing these young players and you're going to be trying to develop a new identity. So he's doing that. I'm okay with that. To your point, the mistakes are individual mistakes that can be fixed.
I think the Murrell goal for me, what I hope it is I hope it's kind of like a light version of sort of the Acosta. I was a little worried after the Chicago game. I'm like, man, I really hope like heads don't drop, that everything kind of sort of falls apart and maybe team players start maybe tuning things out, or, there's morale down. Like, this team really needs some sort of big moment, I think. And so my hope is the Murrell goal is kind of that moment. There were some times when I saw Raul's yelling at Schnegg over sort of what he was tracking back. And I was like, I think back to some of those moments and I'm like, man, I really hope, June has the mistaken goal. And I'm like, I really hope this isn't like a wheels fall off situation. So I think that goal was, that goal for me, I hope is like one of those moments where it kind of propels the team of like, okay, this is still working. And we can still push forward. OVD says, as it related to this question, how can we evaluate Troy's performance throughout after this year? With it clear that 2026 is when the front office will start to be where we want it to be. What is success for Troy? I personally love his vibes. The culture seems to be building, super impressive performance, but just don't know how much we can lay on him with the roster building at this point. You can't really lay much. Your only hope is like, can he still put together and show new wrinkles that can be effective? And I think that's what we've seen so far. Is we talk about the passing out of the back. That was something this team didn't have last year. I think there are signs that he is able to sort of get players in, get buy-in, and get development in the roster. So all good signs, and we'll kind of see where 2026 brings us. Oh wow, his RGN says, I'm not sure how Kim was at fault for either goal. They were kicked and short and headed across the goalsmith. Rawls was caught ball watching, or at least on the second goal. And what was it like? Chicago noticed a weakness in the corner kick defense had exploited. I think the first goal he's not at fault. Like, I think Schnegg gets beat. Like, he's not completely at fault, but definitely getting sort of nudged in the goal. Not a good look. You shouldn't be doing that. Brandon Zabron, what are the percentage chance that there's a DC as another big signing in the window? DPU 22. Let's talk about this. This was something that came up that you talked about on the Thursday show. We've been told from DC, from Stephen Goff, everybody else, DC's doing the 2-4 U22 slot. The roster things came out, and we got kind of excited because they were sitting at the DP designated player model. We've talked about this so much. I don't know if I want to explain it again, but the confusion for a lot of people does not appear like there are any signings sort of evident. Why go with the designated player model? I have a theory. I don't know what you think, John.
Hit me with your theory.
Okay, I have a theory that they are 99.999% sure they are going to that 2-4 U22 model. Is there any this is not like the confirmation. Like you make this decision to go DP model and then you can't switch it at like the end of the window.
No,
like you can
change it.
You can change it. I think what they're doing is they're like, look, like we know we're not, we're probably not going to be in the market for 222 players. I think they see they have the million in GAM. They get 2 million in GAM if they stick with that roster 2-4 U22 throughout the whole year. They're like, you know what? Like we're gonna, be responsible. We don't want to, take that GAM and sign a player that we're not ready for. So Major League Soccer, just hold on to that GAM. Just keep it in a nice safe for us on the spreadsheet. Hide it away in a little cell. When we need it, we'll grab it. I think they're trying to be flexible. So if that DP signing comes through, and if that big move does maybe materialize, we get closer. The window's open, I think, through the end of April. Things can change. European teams can get like settled to where they're just like mid-table. And then they're like, well, we need to offload some players. And, we got some players that, we're not really interested in keeping next year. And then DC can swoop right in and make an offer for a player. So I think this team is still targeting the summer. I think that's going to be where you're going to see them make that big splash, whether it's 2 U22s, a DP and a U22. So I would put this at like, I think I already said 0.001%. That's where I'm putting it at. I don't think it happens. I think they're just, you look out, I think some of these deals like Barajas and others just kind of developed very quickly. So it's kind of like, you never know. It's like, you never know when that call is going to come through. And there's a player, maybe you're a player you're talking to in the summer. Suddenly they're like, you know what? I'm done where I am here. I want to move now. What do we have to do to get this done? So
flexibility, I think, is at play here.
Yeah. I think if like they declare the 2-4 U22, like they get the million in GAM, and maybe that's also playing into it where if they then start signing,
if they get it and spend it, then they're trapped in the second half.
Exactly.
They have to sort of, whatever roster decisions they've made with the spot itself and the salary, that would persist unless the DP. Well, I guess the one thing you'd say is the DP role and both the under 22 have a set roster salary cap, so you can project that part. But the GAM, I'm not. I feel like this is like one level abstracted beyond my my comprehension. Like as far as my capology headset there. I don't know. I think it's I don't think it really is. I don't think it matters. I think they signed who they were going to sign. They were always going to wait for the summer, most likely, other than 99.999% or whatever how many decimal points we said. So it really didn't matter too much. I think if they don't spend in the summer, then yeah, by all means,
roast them.
Roast them. Bring out the pitchforks.
I think they will. I think they will spend it. I think, yeah. I if they don't spend it, then something terribly, terribly wrong has happened. I would put. I think a lot of this. I think for Pirani's standpoint, he's playing for his job in the summer because there's no doubt that they're going to look to maybe spend big in that. Brendan Rizwan, we talked about Stroud. I think we say he starts next week. And then maybe Murrell coming off the bench again. And if Murrell puts in another performance like he has the past 2 games, then yeah, I think he can start talking.
I feel like our fans love a goal scored off the bench and immediately assume that changes the calculus. They do that every single time.
Pirani was the big one, right? Like it was like, oh yeah, he's got to start, and then yeah,
and then they're like, I really wish he wouldn't have. He's really much better off the bench.
yeah, then we got some more questions. Sabatis at Blue Sky, where does Murrell's bicycle buzzer beater rank all time DC United regular season goals? Surely behind Rooney to Acosta, but is it number 2?
No.
I would say down the list. Yeah, down the list than you think if you've been a long time DC fan. I mean, like I would put like even Neil's goal to get DC into the playoffs like above that just from impact.
Or Charlie Davies' first goal against the Columbus Crew in the first. There's a lot, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
the problem is we're a team
30 years of history, man.
We're old, and there's even more history than that. So it's tough.
All right. And I do want to call Elliot Perkins. Does have a spirit question here. I think let's close out. Any other sort of thoughts for DC? Any other things? Any other things we'll talk about?
I'll do another preview show on Friday and try to figure out what the deal is with Kansas City and just get some positivity vibes cooking before Saturday. But I don't know. I would love to see 3 points. I could just say that.
Yeah, I would really love to see. I would love to see 3 points in the next 2 games. I would love, or 6 points total, like 2 wins, and I think that will quell a lot of fears, get some momentum before we hit into the wood chipper of April and May.
Do not concede multiple goals to the team that has scored no goals so far through 2. So I would ask them, please do not do that.
Let's I'll say this over. Well, let's go and say it over under 4 goals in the next. Well, let's do better. Over under 3.5 goals
between the 2 games.
Between the 2 games.
Over.
I'll go under. Why not? They're at home. I don't really rate.
Oh, you were saying concede?
Conceded, yes.
Under.
You think under?
I thought you were. You just said under.
No, it's under. I'm just surprised. You're Mr. Negative, man. I was like, oh, you went over. Of course you went over. You think they're going to do?
They're playing 2 pretty bad teams at home. I think that's why. That's my hope.
That's our hope is under. Okay.
You're like under. Wait, you said under? What's wrong with you? I
was surprised, man, because you're usually the one who's like, oh, over there. Yeah, I don't have any faith. I have no faith in this team. No faith.
Listen, Rudy is not your co-host. I'm not that terribly negative. I just have some axes to grind.
That's real surreal inside baseball there. All right. I think we got it's sort of slowed down, I guess, as far as the Spirit news. They'll have a game next week.
The Challenge Cup. The community shield of the NWSL.
Yeah, we got no preseason game. I haven't even who have they played in preseason? Like I haven't even seen. Yeah,
it's all been secret if they have. All I know is Paige Mateer is on crutches and is out for months, according to rumors. Rebecca Bernal's been signed. They've signed 9,000 defenders in the window, so it's okay. That's all I really got.
Yeah. Jerseys. Thoughts on the jerseys?
I think they're kind of cool. I think I would look horrible in them, and I will not buy them. Yeah. I would look, if any, I will wear one and take pictures of them. If anybody wants to buy a authentic $300 jersey for the show, I will put it on. Although they don't have men's sizes, so I guess I won't.
Well, pause there for a minute. I feel like there was some. I think there's some.
You think it was a boo boo on the pricing?
I don't think it's a boo-boo on the pricing. I think it is a conversion rate on the pricing because the jersey itself is still ridiculous. 195 jerseys without customization, like 195 jerseys is the starting point with customization for authentic. Women's size
United,
women's size is only DC United authentic is like 150 or something like that. So
this was $299 US in their web store
with all customization and everything.
$330. To get everything done.
Okay, maybe that's wrong, but that's ridiculous. Yeah. That's.
You should get a 5-minute cameo substitute appearance for that much money.
that is like I've always jersey prices are ridiculous. We talk about that. I even look at like how much is like an authentic like Liverpool kit, and it's like they're made by Nike, same company, like $130. Like,
they're getting into the authentic hockey jersey range, which always was the gold standard for expensive jerseys. Because at least you're like, well, at least it's a lot of material. And it's long sleeve.
And it's warm.
And
then, but Elliot Perkins says this question. You guys have a discussion about the overall strategy and quality of the player signings for the Spirit. I found it uneven and confusing. I disagree. Like maybe before their center defender signings, but like Rebecca Burnell plays Monterey are a dominant team in Liga MX, and she's been a part of like several trophies for like I'm excited to watch her play. I think she's going to be a good player for this team.
I think the expectations were that they were going to raid Barcelona, and then they didn't do that. So I think maybe that's setting the agenda. I still think they could improve at the 9. I still think that's a place where you could go out in the market and spend a lot of money. Bunny Shaw is like having the worst time of her life at Man City right now. She's being like racially abused right now. Like if there's just write a check, get her out of there. It's horrible right there. There you go, problem solved. But that is a place. The goal scoring side is a place they could probably afford to spend some money if they wanted to.
The only concern is obviously the cap. Where are they against the cap? They probably you had to dedicate some cap space to the defensive side of the ball. That was
Sure.
Probably the weakest point as far as the team is concerned, and you had to solidify that and make that strong. Goals are good because this team is going to find goals. Like I'm not really
if
worried.
Everyone's healthy. If people stay healthy, for sure.
Yeah,
it is funny that the amount of defensive overhaul that they've kind of not necessarily defensive overhaul, but the money and time they spent on it, considering they finished runner up to the championship and like they won the Supporters Shield, right?
What's that?
They won the Supporters Shield, right? That's why they're in this. Orlando
won the Supporters Shield. They won the NWSL Cup. They're getting in because they were runners up in the NWSL. I don't know if it'd be runner up in Supporters Shield. I think it's just like, you know what? These were the two best teams this year.
Right. Like this is a made up thing we just started this year. Let's just have these two teams play, please. Yeah. Make it happen.
I mean, it's like, take your pick. Yeah. I'm sure if they said like, well, are they in because they runnered up at an NWSL or they're runners up in the Supporters Shield? And anybody else's question would be yes and move on.
It's no more convoluted how Inter Miami gets in the tournaments where they're like, teams that are based in Fort Lauderdale have gotten a Club World Cup spot. That's how we're doing this.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, man, those games are coming up. We'll definitely cover those. Yeah, we're always going to we'll cover Spirit, we'll cover DC. So we appreciate the questions you guys sent in. That's why we do this show. You had some comments in the chat. Sorry we didn't get to them. But we appreciate them nonetheless. Thank you guys so much for listening. John, anything you want to drop before we close out?
Patreon.com/RFK Refugees. We've now done 2 weeks in a row with exclusive shows that are both video and audio. Oh, I don't know if you guys can see those. Can you see the balloons that just happened?
What was that from? What was that from?
This is from my, because I'm on my iPad, so it does the emojis. For people who are listening, balloons just exploded onto my camera when I did some sort of motion. So anyway, join patreon.com, our Patreon at the $5 level. You'll get a second episode, and you get to look at me do it. I'm trying to like make it more visually interesting. Right now, it's just me in my basement. We're gonna figure that out. But and usually it used to be like 5 minutes long, and the last two have been both 10 and 30 minutes. So I'm not committing to that, but I am committing to doing one. So anyway, join it.
All right, folks, that's gonna do it. We will catch you guys next week. Vamos.